Now, there seems no good news for the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Is battling war at multiple fronts. Now, on the front lines, the situation is pretty grim. Ukraine is struggling to keep up its fight against the Russian war machine. This is the American President Donald Trump is pushing a new peace formula. On the other hand, there are searches that continue at the residence of Zelensky's top aide. That is now simmering a major political crisis. Take a look at this report as the stakes could not get higher for Zelensky.
In Europe's most volatile war zone, a new diplomatic fault line is opening. Volodymyr Zelensky, once the global face of resistance, is now caught in a brutal geopolitical vice. US President Donald Trump signals a fresh peace proposal, one that reportedly demands Kyiv accept frontline realities as they are today. A deal many see as bad, but possibly the only deal on the table. Zelensky faces a tough choice between a painful compromise or a no deal and further war.
The Russian war continues, and we all hear that Russia scorns the efforts of key global powers to truly end the war with a lasting peace. But whether there will be peace does not depend on Russia's threats or on whatever ultimatums it voices. It depends on the conditions the world ensures so that this aggression cannot be continued.
For Zelensky, this is a nightmare crossroads. His army is stretched, ammunition low, funding from its European allies is uncertain. On the front lines, three separate crises are unfolding. Russia is moving fast in Zaporizhia and in Kupiansk, further to the north. Putin asserts Russian forces have surrounded the embattled Ukrainian city of Pokrovsk and control 70% of it, but Kyiv's top general said Ukraine was pushing back hard. Zelensky is also fighting another losing battle. The flames of corruption has now reached his doorsteps. Ukraine's anti-corruption agencies search the home of his powerful chief of staff. The official, Andriy Yermak, is the person leading Kyiv's negotiating team trying to hash out terms with Washington. Putin is playing hardball. He rules out any agreement with what he calls Ukraine's illegitimate leadership. He alleges Kyiv made a fundamental strategic mistake by not holding elections under martial law. The Russian president thunders his readiness to fight on if Kyiv chooses to fight to the last Ukrainian. Yet behind the chest thumping, Moscow signals something unexpected. Putin is open to discussing a Trump-led peace plan with US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff's visit to Moscow next week.
As I understand, they decided that all 28 points should be grouped into 4 separate components. We received all this information. In general, we agree that US-backed peace plan can be used as a basis for future agreements. But it will be impolite on my part to speak about any final versions because there are none.
Putin maintains that legal status of Crimea and Donbass is one of the key points of discussions with the US over a newly proposed peace plan for Ukraine. As Putin courts Washington and Trump pushes his own peace formula, Kyiv's room to maneuver narrows by the hour. Zelensky's next move could shape not just Ukraine's fate, but the future of European security itself. Bureau report, WION World is one.
All right, now joining us on the broadcast all the way from Washington, D.C., we've got Mr. John Irath, who's a Senior Policy Director for the Center for Arms Control and Non-Proliferation. Mr. Irath, thank you very much indeed for joining us here. You know, the fact that the anti-corruption police in Ukraine is raiding the home of Andriy Yermak. You know, he is the top advisor to Volodymyr Zelensky, and many regard him as the second most powerful man in Ukraine. What do you think is actually happening here? Is this just a corruption case that is singeing Volodymyr Zelensky, or is there an attempt in some ways to give an ultimatum to Zelensky that if he does not agree to a peace proposal put forth that is there on the table, then probably things could actually go really wrong for him.
Well, I don't know the details of the internal Ukrainian politics or judicial matters, but my understanding is that this is a corruption case that has been ongoing for some time and is quite extensive and is something that has been known about.
Interesting. So you do not read anything more into this corruption case. But in your assessment, what does this do to Volodymyr Zelensky's own position? Because Andriy Yermak was his top diplomat. He was, in fact, the top negotiator who was meeting the negotiating team from the Russian side and also the American representatives. What do you think this does to Volodymyr Zelensky's own position within Ukraine?
Obviously, this is a negative development for Ukraine. But speaking historically, corruption has been an issue for successive Ukrainian governments going back to independence. So this is not new. It's something that has happened before and something that the Ukrainians really should get under control.
All right, my final question to you is this. Do you think the doors are closing in on Volodymyr Zelensky with respect to the options that he has on the table with the position that Donald Trump has taken with respect to this war?
I think that President Zelensky has played this rather well. He received a Russia-drafted but Washington-approved so-called peace plan that was clearly unacceptable to Ukraine, and he did not say no. He understands that what President Trump wants to get out of this is a Nobel Prize. He wants to end the war, and he doesn't really care about who is more offended the way he ends it. So Zelensky said, let's work on the basis of that. Let's find what we can accept, and let's develop some new features that are more friendly to Ukraine. And that is what has now been negotiated, and that's what apparently Ukraine has signed off on, and that's what should be discussed in Moscow next week.
Interesting. We'll have to see as to how that unfolds. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. John Irath, for joining us with your perspective there.
You're welcome.